Hey guys. So, usually I like to review movies that I think won't necessarily be on everyone's radar. Like, not necessarily super obscure by any means, but, either new movies that I liked or, older movies that are semi obscure. Basically, what I'm getting at is that I don't think I've reviewed anything that is considered, an all time classic by the majority of all serious film fanatics. And today's film is one that I hold in such high regard that I wouldn't expect to hear much criticism from me. Not that I'm known for that necessarily. It set a new standard for sci fi horror and did a number of things that had not been done yet. Not like this, anyways. It's been imitated countless times, but it has never been surpassed, and at this point, probably never will be. So just remember, in space, no one can hear you scream. Alien. Alien was released in 1979, which is one of the many parts of why it's so good, in my opinion. These types of movies had already been a thing for decades at this point, so it does kind of show you that you don't need to do it first to do it the best. I think it was the next logical step in what had been established with the atomic age of sci-fi and horror. The script was written by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, famously. And the way this film came together, like the way a lot of them do, was a combination of the right timing and typical studio interference. And it's because O'Bannon and Shusett fought back against, studio big shots that the final product was as good as it was. So back in 1970, O'Bannon made a student film with John Carpenter called Dark Star. You may have heard of that one. It was more of a sci-fi parody, kind of comedy-ish, that left O'Bannon wanting to do something like that, but in a horror vein. So in a really funny way, Dark Star is essentially the prototype for what would become the Alien franchise. Meanwhile, Ronald Shusett was working on basically the Total Recall script. He was really impressed with Dark Star, so he got in touch with O'Bannon, and the two, had a mutual admiration of each other's current projects. O'Bannon had then signed on to the now mythic Dune project, helmed by Alejandro Jodorowsky, which ultimately fell through. I'm going to have to talk about that one of these days, because that is just endlessly fascinating to me. If you haven't seen Jodorowsky's Dune, the documentary, definitely check it out. So yeah, this left him high and dry, but it was the catalyst for meeting Swiss artist H.R. Geiger, which this entire film would not have been the same without. He also met a couple of other artists who did conceptual, stuff for Alien. But I think Geiger, no offense to the other guys, but Geiger is the head honcho as far as art is concerned in this entire franchise. And O'Bannon took inspiration from a lot of sci-fi and horror from the 50s and 60s, and essentially pieced together what he liked most about these works, and he openly admitted it. I don't know if he admitted it at the time, but later on he's like, yeah, I borrowed from everything that I thought was cool at the time. A little fun fact for you guys that I find just hilarious is Alien was almost bought by Roger Corman's studio, which would have been interesting to say the least. It wouldn't be the masterpiece that it is, but interesting nonetheless, at least in my opinion. And they ended up selling the script to Brandywine, a company that had connections to Fox. And this obviously allowed for a bigger and better production, which was necessary. And but as it always does when it comes to big studios, it led to studio interference. And this was a really stressful time for O'Bannon and Shusett, who were starting to feel like David Giler and Walter Hill from Brandywine were trying to just take over the project entirely. Oddly enough, though, in the end, Giler and Hill did improve the character dialogue and added in the android character Ash and his own subplot. Shusett later stated that this was one of the best parts of the film, so it did kind of work out. This is probably a rare example of when studio interference actually worked out for the better. Now that the script was finished, Fox wasn't super interested in funding it. But then Star Wars happened and changed the entire world. Now they needed the right director, who was found in Ridley Scott, who had impressed everyone with his 1977 directorial debut, The Duelists, which is a film that I have never seen, and I realize now that I need to probably check that out at some point. And he was really enthusiastic about Alien. He was still a young director, had a lot to prove. He was completely on board with pushing it in a more horror direction, than most sci-fi at the time. And now for the cast. Ridley Scott wanted strong actors that could carry their own weight so he could focus his time on the visual aspects. O'Bannon's script had not really focused much on the human characters. His crew was gender neutral and pretty much interchangeable, and by design. And this kind of left Ridley Scott and his, casting directors to flesh out these characters the way that they thought this should be. He wanted the interactions between the actors to feel spontaneous and organic, and for the characters to just feel like regular people. The term truckers in space has been used to describe them, and it perfectly sums them up. These are working class people, and not action heroes, and literally everything that they were going for works out perfectly. The crew consists of 7 characters played by Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, John Hurt, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, Ian Holm, and Yaphet Kotto. And this is a very strong cast. In fact, I've often used it as a textbook example of how to write simple but great characters. You don't necessarily get any backstory, but keep in mind that this was by design, and not laziness, like a lot of modern scripts. What I love about them is that they are all unique to each other and have a natural chemistry. You instantly believe that they're just coworkers. They are all likable, have actual personalities, and so many scriptwriters could really learn a lot from them. You've got Dallas, the captain of the ship, played by Tom Skerritt. He's got charm, keeps his cool under pressure, cares about his crew, but won't hesitate to yell at them, when they're arguing with each other. He's kind of like the dad of the ship. Then you have Kane, played by the great John Hurt. He's one of the more level-headed of the crew, and let's be honest, he suffers the worst fate of them all. Then Lambert, played by Veronica Cartwright, probably my least favorite of the crew, but she gives a good performance, especially in the spots where she's scared or, just emotional in general. And Brett, played by the TV and film legend Harry Dean Stanton, who had already been acting since the 50s. He is one of my favorites. He's got that sleazy but still good dude type vibe. He brings a bit of a humor, to the crew. He wears a Hawaiian shirt and, he's literally always chain smoking. Parker is played by Yaphet Kotto, and he's also one of my favorites. He's usually tagging along with Brett, and they make a great combo. Together, they're definitely like the troublemakers of the crew. Parker's pretty quick to speak his mind, and is not afraid to second-guess his crew's decision-making. He seems to always be eating or chewing gum, and his bunk area is covered with nude centerfolds. He chews the scenery, absolutely, and is just a delight to watch. A fantastic actor. Ian Holm plays Ash, the crew doctor. He's an asshole, but does give a great physical performance in the second act, if you know what I mean. And yes, I saved my favorite for last, Ripley. Played by the absolute legend herself, Sigourney Weaver. She was the youngest and least experienced of the entire cast, which led to some tension on set, but she holds her own with everyone. If I remember correctly, I believe she was 28 during the filming of Alien. And in my opinion, she gives the best performance here, arguably. I mean, Ripley is just one of my favorite, not only action heroes, but final girls as well. And I'll kind of reiterate, another thing, I think the thing that I love most about the crew here is that these are just all regular people. Again, they aren't soldiers, they aren't mercenaries or anything like that, and they certainly aren't ready for what they end up facing. And let's not forget about Jonesy the cat. I always assumed that she was, or that he was Ripley's cat because, she does risk her life to keep him safe a number of times. I also love how the horror trope of animals getting killed does not apply here. Spoiler, sorry. I love it, and whoever wrote him into the script has to be a huge cat fan. Has to be. Oh, and Jones also provides not one, but 2 jump scares, and I do wonder if those are the OG horror movie cat jump scares. Did anyone do it before 1979? I don't know. Let me know. So another thing I love about this film is the set design. Most of the film takes place on the cruise ship, which is amazing, by the way. But my favorite set piece would have to be the downed ship that the crew has to investigate. A lot of it was designed by H.R. Geiger, and I'm just a big fan of his. His style already just looks so alien. He was just the perfect person for this. Who better to design an alien spacecraft than fucking H.R. Geiger? And of course, I would have to mention the score by absolute legend Jerry Goldsmith, one of the best in the game. So I'm a massive, massive fan of the Alien franchise. Even even though the later films are riddled with issues. And this has always been my personal favorite. And I think that it's mostly due really to the atmosphere, which is just constant dread. Not many films can do this for me. I mean, sure, some of the practical effects are slightly dated, but it still works for me. I also think that the Xenomorph is the best monster design in film history. Hands down the best. I'll fight you on that one. I'm giving Alien an easy 10 out of 10. It's a masterpiece, and I'm not even going to try and look for any fault in it. I'm just not even going to bother. I can't imagine anyone not having seen it at this point, but if you haven't, make sure you watch the director's cut. Or if you have seen the film, but you haven't seen the director's cut, you absolutely have to. It's a must. It has a great scene in it that I won't spoil or anything like that, but it should have never been removed. In fact, I cannot wrap my head around why it was removed. It's just fantastic, and it really kind of ties everything together. It's near the end, by the way, so check it out. Anyways, which Alien film is your favorite? I know a lot of people prefer Aliens, the sequel, which is, I will admit, it does outdo Alien in a lot of ways. But I just have always had a soft spot for this, for Alien, and I don't think that ever will change. Alien's pretty close, though. So yeah, let me know which is your favorite, even if it's Alien 3 or Resurrection or Prometheus. I like a lot of those. So anyways, let me know. Let's talk about the franchise. I'm so excited for Romulus. I don't know about you guys, but I'm absolutely going to see it opening day. I have faith in Fede Alvarez. Even if it's a kind of a play it safe, kind of Alien by the numbers film, it could still be really good. So yeah, let me know if you're going to be seeing that as well. Cheers, guys.